What do you remember about the day?
Not much.
Really?
Honestly, not much at all. Some stuff came back to me in bits and pieces if, like, someone reminded me of it. Like,
Or you see a picture.
yeah.
You're like, I know it happened because here's the picture.
Yeah, like I remember I saw a picture of it, but NBC was like in the driver parade truck with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember them being there. I don't remember what we talked about, but I remember like, oh yeah, I remembered that they were doing a special on me that was going to be ironically airing after the Pocono race, which never aired. But yeah, like on the start, I remembered that the first start was called off because there was a crash like before the green. And then I remember on the restart, I had a great run. I was slowly building up my oval legs, you know, trying to watch lots of race tapes and see like if you dare go around like the outside on a restart, because you'll always kind of pick up a spot or two. So I felt a little confident, and I gave it a shot, and it worked. I had a great turn one. I think I got two guys. I think Joseph and Simon Pagino, and we're heading down the back straight to turn two, and I had a great run on Ryan Hunter-Ray. I went to the inside, and from my memory, that's basically where my memory goes blank. I just remember like crossing to the inside, and then I don't remember anything else.
Here comes the red machine, the Lucas Oil entry of Canada's Robert Wickens.
Oh, that's going to be tight through there.
Oh,
Early touch. Oh, my God.
Oh, that's Robert Wickens. And his teammate is into him as well, James Hinchcliffe. That was ugly.
Do you watch the video?
I have, yeah. Took a while to finally see it.
To get yourself to where you were comfortable to watch it.
I think before my family let me watch it. Yeah, I mean,
they purposely kept it away from you.
Yeah, I mean, I think some context there. Like I was in a medically induced coma for, I think 7 days, 10 days after the accident. So by the time, I was more alert, I still wasn't there entirely, with all the pain management things I was on. And I couldn't hold a phone because both my hands were broken. So it was also like I needed someone to show it to me. So it was pretty easy for them to say like, oh, let's just look at it later. And get some rest. And
so you were talking about your hands, like the injuries that you sustained in this crash are insane. How do you say that? Spinal fracture?
Thoracic.
And what does that mean?
So the thoracic spine is basically the middle of your back. So for simple terms, your neck is your cervical spine. Mm-hmm. The middle is your thoracic spine, and then your lower is your lumbar spine.
A neck fracture, tibia and fibula fractures in both legs, both hands. What bones in your hands?
So on my right hand, I broke my fifth metacarpal.
Uh-huh.
And on my left hand, I actually only broke my ring finger knuckle, but it like exploded. So I have a cadaver knuckle in there.
Wow.
So the joke is, so my now wife was just like, the only finger you had to break was your left ring finger.
Yeah.
So now I have my wedding band on my right.
I noticed that.
You had a fractured right forearm, an elbow, ribs, a pulmonary contusion. You don't know any of this, when you finally come back, right? But when you look at that list, and obviously when you start to talk rehab or figure your way out of this, right? How in the hell do you rehab all of that? Right? Like how do you, I can't even imagine, like when we think about crashing or we think about getting injured, I think for myself, it's there. You never imagine this multitude of different dynamics in terms of multiple injuries, right? There's a head injury, or I broke my arm, or I have a ribs, I broke my ribs, or I broke my clavicle.
Yep.
But you broke everything. How do you even start to rehab all of that? We know what you've done. We've seen the videos. We know you're sitting right here, but this is everything.
I mean, I think the first thing was when I finally saw the crash for the first time, I was angry that it was like I was expecting worse.
What? Wow.
I don't, it was just, I'm like, that's it?
That's it. Yeah.
Because it happens quickly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, I saw it, keep in mind, like my legs were in external fixators because they were so broken they couldn't operate right away because of the swelling. So I had like these like metal bars and everything on my legs. Both my hands were in casts. I had a neck brace, back brace. I basically couldn't move. And like, so I'm like this, and I was just like, where's the rest of the like, I thought I'd get hit again, or like, it just went into the fence and spun around and came out the other side. And it was, because like you see crashes,
Yeah.
right? And you see them miraculously walk away, or like you said, a broken leg or a broken arm, or maybe a mild head injury, or, you know. But the fact that like you just said, like my list was just, I had a hard time understanding like why mine over the next person's.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it's not that uncommon for a race car to go airborne and go up into the fence, although it's rare. It happens. But they always end up to like be like not life-threatening injuries. So I was trying to figure out why was mine the way it was.
Yeah.
And wasn't until the IndyCar medical team and the doctors sat me down and actually went like frame by frame and broke down the sheer energy involved in the accident. Like when my car went into the fence, I was still going 212 miles an hour. And then I went from there to net zero in like 0.6 of a second.
Just
So,
the force of that alone
yeah,
is responsible for a lot of the injuries.
pretty much. But
Yeah.
then, you know, hats off to IndyCar. I'm still here.
Yeah.
Right. Like knowing what I know now, like obviously I went through different stages of grief and trying to understand, you know, not the why me's, but it was more like, why did I get hurt so bad? And then once they explained that, I was very grateful to IndyCar and all the safety team to not only extract me in a safe manner, but in an expedient manner. And the IndyCar held up tremendously. You know, I mean, I think, sure, there's a lot of luck involved, knowing what I know about the accident because it's the fence poles that are the problems. It's not particularly the fence. It's like those poles don't really move.
Mm-hmm.
And so where my car hit the fence, it was basically at the strongest part of the car. And if it was anywhere else, it probably just would have cut the car in half. But yeah, so I got pretty banged up, but still lived to tell the tale.
Did you hit a pole?
I did.
But in a part, I'm assuming that actually could have made it worse.
So basically, when I went airborne, I went more or less like nose into the fence.
Right. And then spun, right?
Yeah, so, you know, every, I don't know, 20 feet or so, there's like fence poles to hold the fence up. And my nose went through the fence and then right around like where your knees are inside the Indy car. So it's called the bulkhead area, but there's like a titanium ring around that area, and it's like literally the strongest part of the car. That's what struck the pole.
Wow.
And so it cracked the chassis like 300 degrees around, but it didn't break off all the way. But then in doing so, that's what then spun me around and caused, you know, I think the broken legs were from the quick impact. But it was the spinning and obviously the G-force that did my spinal cord, my ribs, my neck, my middle back, lower back,
Goodness.
hands, arm.
Was your fiance at the track?
She was not.
She was not at the track.
She was not. She was watching at home. Not really. So my wife's not. She didn't know motorsports before she met me.
What's her name?
Carly.
Carly. Okay.
Yeah. So when she met me, she just knew there was racing, but she didn't know there's different types of racing. So she only knew motorsport as like DTM and the races I brought her to, and there was never a bad accident through good fortunes or indifference, but it was just there was never really an accident that even looked scary. So when we were talking about going to IndyCar for 2018, Scott Dixon had a really bad Indy 500 crash in 2017. And I guess she was researching what IndyCar was like, and like that kept popping up, and she was just like, I don't want you doing this. I'm like, yeah, but he walked away.
Oh, wow.
And so when my car went airborne, she was just like, oh, racing's safe. Like, they just walk away. And then she ended up getting flown to Allentown, Pennsylvania, to visit me in the hospital. And still, the wives and girlfriends of other drivers were telling her, like, just go, because he's broken his leg. And when he comes out of surgery, like, I'm sure he's going to want to see you, and like trying to play it down because it's not their place, I guess, to share. And and then once she got to the hospital, it was not what she was prepared for.
What did they tell her?
They basically told her that I was paralyzed, that I'm in critical condition, I'm currently in a coma, and basically we'll get more updates as my body reacts within the hours. So, and at this time, it was just her flown by herself. Like, my parents were, and my brother and everything were in Canada, so they couldn't fly to Allentown in time, so then they just started driving. And so it kills me to say it, but Carly had to call my family while they were driving to Pennsylvania to tell them, like, that I'm paralyzed.
My gosh.
Which I'm still understanding the trauma and the ripple effect that it had. Like, drivers are selfish, right? Like, I put myself out there, but I never thought of the subsequent, like, ripple effect of how it affects others. And I definitely do now. But just knowing, well, I guess even not knowing, I probably will never know what, like, it was really like in those days when I was just in a coma. And, you know, I think the first issue was surviving the spinal cord procedure, because my lungs were so damaged and bruised from the accident that being on my stomach for that long, there was a high chance that I wouldn't have survived. But then we needed to do the spinal cord surgery to stabilize my back. So that was kind of the first stumbling block. And then from there, it was, when I was in the coma, just making sure everything was healing properly.
So you understandably talk about dealing with grief. I mean, you've got to be emotionally a wreck once you're now coming out of the drugs. I mean, when he talks about, how do you start to rehab, man, it's almost like rehabbing your brain to process all of this would be the first big hurdle before you even get to the physical stuff. Am I wrong?
No, for sure. I mean, I don't know when it clicked. Like, people always ask me, like, what's your first memory from the accident, from the hospital, and it's like the amount of stuff I was on. Like, I have memories in the hospital, but I couldn't tell you an order of what's what, I don't even know when it really clicked that I was paralyzed. Like, I'm pretty sure the first time I said that I'm paralyzed wasn't until like 4 months after the accident. And I don't know if it's because I just didn't believe it, but I know I was so stubborn in those early days that the doctors were trying to show me how I need to take care of myself, and I just was like refusing the help. I'm like, I won't need that.
In your stubbornness, are you thinking about going back driving?
Always, yeah.
I don't know what the future holds for me. It's going to be a very long road to recovery, and all I can say is I can promise you guys that I'm going to work as hard as possible and train as hard as possible to make sure I'm back in a race car as quickly as possible.
All this, like, doubt surrounding it, that when nurses and doctors are saying I won't walk again, I can't walk again, your whole life's going to be different. I was like, okay, well, I'll show you guys. I've proved people wrong before. I'll try to do it again.